Okay, so we're starting a new parak. We are chapter 19. Okay, so just to refresh our minds, we're speaking about the concept that serving Hashem is close to us, and not just close, but very close. Um, so we said, okay, I can understand that serving Hashem is close because if I contemplate on the greatness of Hashem, I will create a love. And then when I love Hashem, then of course I'll go beyond my nature, go beyond myself to serve Him. But that's how serving Hashem is accessible and close. But how can I say that Hashem is that's very close, very accessible for every single Jew, even a person who doesn't have the ability or the knowledge to contemplate on the greatness of Hashem, didn't go to a yeshiva, doesn't know, doesn't have the knowledge, doesn't have the information, doesn't have the patience, doesn't have the time, doesn't have the ability to contemplate. How is a connection to Hashem very close and very attainable for every single Jew? So to answer the word very, we have 8 chapters of Tanya. So we started discussing last time that there's a special kind of love, unique kind of love, which is different than any other love. And this love is called a hidden love, ahava mesuteres. And we asked 4 questions about this love. Two we answered in last chapter, and 2 we're going to answer in this chapter. The questions that we asked is, number 1, what is the source of this love? What does this love strive for? Meaning, what's its definition and what does this love want? What's the goal of this love? Number 3, how is this love an inheritance? And number 4, how is awe included in this love? So as we said in chapter 18, that this love is gifted to us as an inheritance from our forefathers. And we said, how can you inherit a love? Like you could inherit money, you could inherit property, you could even inherit a character trait, but that if I love person A, how can I expect my person to love person A? They'll love person B, they'll love whoever, so how is it that they should be able to give us an inheritance that every single one of us, all their descendants forever, should all love Hashem? And the answer is that what we're getting from our forefathers is a neshama. Within the neshama, the core, the most deepest part of the neshama is chachma of the neshama. And the chachma sheba neshama, that loves Hashem. So that was the answer to question number 3. And we also answered question number 1, that what is the source? The source is chachma. We said chachma is synonymous with seeing. Chachma is above logic. Chachma is where where we find Emunah. Chachma is where Hashem's infinite light shines. It could only shine in Chachma, it can't shine anywhere lower, because anywhere lower is too low for Hashem, for Hashem's infinite light to rest or to be. It could only trickle down from there further. So today what we're gonna mainly do is define the love and understand what this love is striving for.
Where are we up to?
We're at the beginning of Parak Yutas.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll go straight inside. Okay. So in last chapter we discussed the expression. How do we see this love expressed? We see that people in all generations have given up their life for Hashem. That's an expression of this love, but we haven't defined it yet. So that's what we're going to define it, because if I tell you, what the love does or what the love causes, that's great. But now we want to define, why is it that a Jew who was unaffiliated, very little knowledge of God, that even they would give up their life for God? So we understand that that's what they would do, but why would they do it? So we have to understand the definition of this love, this hidden love. To explain further what? To explain further this love. Tzarich leva'er, we have to explain, heitev, very well, Masha Kasuv, what it says, Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam. In Mishlei, King Solomon says this verse, Adam's soul is God's candle. This is Proverbs 20:27. The candle of Hashem is the soul of a person, of a Adam. Yeah. Perush. Sheyisroel hakruyim Adam, Jews who are called Adam, Nishmasam he, their soul is limashal ka'ar haner, is compared to the light of a candle. Okay, so first of all, there are many different descriptions or words that could be used to say a person, and most of them could be referring to humanity. There could be enosh, gever, and even ha'adam could refer to humanity. But Adam by itself, it only refers to a Jewish person.
But Adam, who was the first person, every non-Jew comes from him also, so. How does that?
That's a very good question. But originally, when Hashem created Adam, what was supposed to happen in a perfect world is that everybody would have been Jewish. That would have been the Gan Eden perfect plan. But when it says Hashem blew into Adam a breath of life, that's the source that's our source for the fact that a Jewish person has a neshama. So Adam is, it's hard to say, oh, he is Jewish, he's not Jewish. He's the source of all humanity. But the soul that Hashem breathed inside of him, that was the Jewish soul. It ended up that later on things evolved, and then there were people that are not Jewish. But originally, when Hashem blew that breath into him, what was that? That was the Jewish soul. So when we say Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, the candle of Hashem is the soul of a person, we're only talking about Jewish people. Because it says Yisroel Hakruyim Adam, Jewish people that are called Adam, their soul is compared to the light of a candle, to a flame of a candle, Shemisnanea Tamid Lemaila B'tivai, which by nature continually flickers upwards. And this is it. So its nature is to always strive to go up. And that's why if you take a candle and the candle is lit and you turn the candle upside down, the flame is still going to strive upwards. You're going to see it's going to always go up. You never see a flame going down. It doesn't work. By nature is always to strive and always to flicker. And this is why when a Jew is learning Torah or davening, and they're immersed in the davening or immersed in the learning, you're going to see them shaking back and forth. Why are they shaking? It's because the neshama is revealed at this, revealed and is being expressed, and the neshamas and the flame is flickering. So this is what makes us shackle. There was a story that I read years ago about a family, a Jewish family. They had a inn. They were working for a Polish landlord, and they found a baby in the forest. And the Jewish family, they took this baby and they raised him together with their children. And so they had two boys the same age, one their son, Jewish boy, and then this other boy that they didn't really know anything about him. Whole story, he was really a duke's son, whatever it is. But anyway, the point is that someone who wasn't Jewish, who would frequent the hotel, would frequent the inn, and he sees these two boys, and he said, "Why is one shaking and one not?" Whatever, it's a whole story, but whatever. A neshama is a neshama. It's not something that you could, that you could either you have it or you don't, you know. Um, okay, so let's talk about this candle. Let's talk about this flame. A flame is the only thing that one flame could light a million other flames and it will not be diminished, which is so incredible. There's nothing else that compares to that. If I give money, then if I give you if I give you money, then now I have less in my bank account. But it's incredible, and this is the power of chachma, of love, that we can give and give and give and give, and it doesn't take away. It doesn't take away from us. That's
You think I love, sometimes we feel diminished.
yeah,
That's the giving, but the love that you're giving doesn't give you less love.
And the love is not what's diminished, it's
It gives love,
the giving that
they
gets
still have more.
but think about it. How come every time you have another kid, there's more love. Like where did the love come from? Yeah, it just grows.
And then it just
Yeah. But we have to realize what this is. We're defining chachma shebenefesh. We're defining the deepest core of our soul. So from the deepest core, okay, when we give, sometimes we feel diminished. That's because our animal soul is telling us, enough. Like, how much could you give or how much could you do? And what about me? But we're going to see that the chachma shebenefesh, that is the part of us that is selfless. And so from the we have to realize that from the hello. So amazing to come out in the freezing cold for a tiny baby. Well, we have to realize that from the perspective of the chachma of our neshama, the core, from that place, you could give forever, and will never, and you won't be diminished. So the fact that we feel diminished, it's because we also have the part of us that's selfish, that says, I also need for myself. But
That's why the devil was able to stand for hours and hours, giving out dollars and purpose. Lucy was on a neshama level.
right,
So that when you're feeling depleted from giving, then it's not real giving. You're giving to get. There's
You
some
give it from your
selfish
actual self.
motive.
If you give it.
Right, when you give a real, just to give it to
Hello,
get nothing back,
hello.
and then you feel
Giving
depleted.
it from the-
And the opposite, it gives you something, you feel better after you give. Like when you for real give, you feel better, as opposed to when you give for ulterior motives, even just to get recognition or to get something back, then that depletes you because there's an expectation, and I don't know, that's what I.
right. No, 100%. Okay, so basically the story goes that there were fishermen and they were fishing, and they caught a very big pike fish. And they said, "Wow, this fish is such a big fish, never seen anything like it. We're going to bring it to the king." So, and they said, "Why are we going to bring it to the king? Because the king loves fish." Now the poor fish is in the bucket. They threw a couple of pieces of ice on top. It's barely breathing, but it hears that the king loves fish. So the fish is saying, "Okay, maybe there's hope. Probably the king has a pond. And over there's a lot of nice fish swimming, and there's no sharks. And then probably the fish are fed 3 times a day, very good food. And I'll be saved." They come to the palace. The guards say, "What do you want?" "Oh, we have a fish for the king." And the guard says, "No problem. The king loves fish. Come right in." They go to the king. They say, "Look, we have this fish for you." He says, "I love fish. Please quickly bring it to the kitchen and prepare it. I'm going to eat it for dinner." To the fish in its last breath, he says, "You don't love fish, you love yourself." So most of the loves, as living in this earth, when we say "I love you" or "I love it," do I love the dollar bill? I don't love the dollar bill. I don't love the dollar bill. I love what the dollar bill can do for me. Do I love my car? If it's a lease and in 5 years I have to, give it in and get another one, am I so attached to my car? Do I love my car that when the lease is up and I have to get a new one, that I'm devastated? I don't love my car. I love that my car can get me places and while I'm traveling, be comfortable and whatever it is. So I love what it could do for me. And even with relationships, what happens is we have to try to rise higher than that. But if the reason why I love you is because of what you can do for me, what happens if you don't do it for me? Then what? Then the marriage is over. So in Judaism, marriage is not just based on love. As a matter of fact, there's two parts to a marriage. There's something called kiddushin and nisuin. And in the olden days, there could actually be a year between the kiddushin and the nisuin. But then it got too complicated because of times of war and persecution for the Jews, whatever it is. So now we have kiddushin and nisuin. Hi, all the way from Israel. I didn't even realize. Wow. Okay. Amazing. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
happy to listen.
Amazing. Amazing. So it got complicating. So now under the chuppah, we do both at the same time. But kiddushin means that you are sanctified to me from all other women. We belong to each other, but there's no benefits. We're not living in the same house yet. I'm not making, potato kugel yet or whatever it is. There's no benefit. It's just the first part is the respect and the commitment. And then after that, then you have the love. Oh, and also marriage is also supposed to feel good. And you're also supposed to benefit from each other. 100%. But the love has to be flavored by the commitment and the respect. So of course, many the loves that we have, even love for our children, you could say, oh, what's greater than a love that a person can have for their child? But even with children, there's a lot that we benefit. Of course, there's a lot that we sacrifice, but there's a lot that we benefit. We get nachas, we get pleasure from our kids. There's a lot that our kids can do for us and give to us. But the love that we're talking about here, this ahava mesuteres, this hidden love that we're trying to define, is completely and totally selfless. There's no me, there's no identity, there's no what's in it for me. And from that place where there's no me, I can give and give and give endlessly. Because there's no me to say, oh, I'm too tired. What about me? There is no me. There is no me on that level. And that's what we're going to see. Okay. Mipnei she'ar ha'esh, the fire's flame, chafetz b'teva, is naturally inclined lipared me'apsila, to separate itself from the wick.
What are you up to? Which parak?
Yutes. We're in the beginning of Yutes.
Beginning of your test. Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
V'lidavek b'sharshay l'mayla, and to connect with its root above, b'yisayid ha'esh ha'klali, in the core element of fire, shetachas galgal ha'reach, which is below the moon's orbit. Okay, there are 4 elements. There's fire, water, earth, and wind. 3 of them, the wind and the earth and the water, are happy to stay where they are. But the fire, the water always goes down. Yes, 100%. But but if you think about it, okay, so water always does go down, but you don't find, as much as you go down, once you have a puddle of water, it's not looking for the ocean. Wherever it is. The fire is the only one that is constantly striving to go back to its source. Where is the spiritual source of fire? So we have a world, we have the earth, and then there are things that orbit the earth. One of the things that orbit the earth is the moon. And beneath the moon's orbit, around the earth, that's the spiritual source of fire. And this fire, all it wants is to detach itself from the wick and to connect to its root. And this is its nature. As it says in Eitz Chaim.
Isn't the sun made up of fire also?
That's a good question. That's a good
That's
question.
the source. Well, the moon is the reflection of the sun, right? Whatever.
Where, how does the sun play itself here?
The sun is
Um,
the shadow. Sun is, the moon is the shadow of the sun. You're saying the source of fire.
The source of
Beyond
fire
the
is
moon.
beyond, is beneath,
Maybe that's the same
below
source.
the moon's orbit.
Maybe that's the source of the sun also.
So the sun, I think that we're going to use the sun also as an example soon. And
Yeah, the sun gets the light from the moon? No,
Yeah.
It sounds like what you're saying, it's like you're saying, what you're saying, it's like.
so let's say we say that the fire is fire and the sun is the sun. But the same thing we find in the sun. You have a sun, and then you have rays of the sun. Now, the rays of the sun are connected to the sun. But the ray, if the ray goes back, so when the ray leaves the sun, then it shines and it makes an impact. And when the ray, in the sun itself, there are no rays because you're completely nullified within the sun. You can't, you're completely insignificant. So really, it's kind of the same, it's the same exact idea. A candle, if you ask a candle, where can you make the biggest impact? If I take a candle and I go outside on a beautiful sunny day and I hold up this candle, it's what difference is it going to make? It's going to hardly show or not show up at all, or not show at all. But you could say, listen, candle, I have a flame, I have a good idea for you. Go to the restaurant. There's a couple that's having their anniversary tonight. And the restaurant is very, the lights are dimmed. And there's the ambiance of the restaurant. And little flame, you go be on the table and you could help create the ambiance for this couple. Now you can make a big difference. Or comes Friday night and we set the timer and the meal continued longer than we thought. And now the timer turned off the lights, and now all you have is the Shabbos candles. It's beautiful. Right? So now the candle's making an impact. So you tell the candle, I'm sorry, the flame that's on the candle. So the flame can make an impact when it's not in its source, which is below the moon's orbit. Over here, it makes impact. Once it goes back to its source, if you ask flame, what would you like? What's your desire? The flame says, all I want is to go back to my source. And it doesn't make any sense. If you go back to your source, you're going to be non-existent. Just like a ray, if the ray goes back to its source into the sun, you're nothing. You're a nobody.
How about we look at it this way? If a flame doesn't have oxygen, it doesn't burn. A flame, its source is oxygen because that's its fuel. So it's always going up, it's always looking for the oxygen. There's no oxygen around the moon. So below the moon, what's that? Earth, and what's down here? Oxygen. So oxygen is its source. So if we're a flame, Hashem is our source. He's our oxygen. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
But that's why a flame's always going up, because it's the oxygen. Without oxygen, if you were to put it in a box and close it, it would
Right,
go out.
right.
So oxygen is its source. Hashem's our oxygen.
Okay, so is oxygen the source, or is oxygen what's allowing it to stay lit?
Well, yes, but I mean, I guess you could kind of look at it like that. It's kind of two parts, the wick and the oxygen. I mean, it's what keeps it going.
So keeps
Just like
it
Hashem
going,
keeps us
but
going,
yeah, 100%. It's a
I
beautiful,
don't know what
beautiful
else, I don't know
analogy.
what else to say is its source, though.
The
It's
source,
literally the flame.
yeah. So obviously we are speaking in spiritual terms. We're speaking about, just like we have four elements physically, we have four elements spiritually. So we are speaking in spiritual terms because there is no actual fire burning inside of us. So we are speaking spiritually. But what we're saying is that the source, what we're saying in Tanya is that the source of fire, we're not talking about what allows it, what gives it, we're not talking about the things that it needs to continue burning, but we're talking about the source of it. And we're saying that if you were to ask the flame, what are you striving for? The flame says, I want to go back to my source. The flame doesn't want to exist. It doesn't want to be here. It would rather go back to its source. It's not interested in making a difference on this earth. All it wants is to go back to its source. And there's parts, I'm saying there's many parts of us. There's parts of us that hasn't, most of us, and all of creation, the way Hashem created it is that everything wants to exist and to be preserved, etc. But there's that one teeny tiny part of us that all it wants is to go back to its source. So the neshama wants to go back to its source, which is Hashem. And if you're talking a mashal, you're talking a parable for it, you're saying that the flame always wants to go back to its source. It's always striving upwards because it's not satisfied. It's not happy. It's not content to just be. It wants to go back to its source. Okay. You tell the candle, you say, it's so silly because if you leave the wick, then you're going to be extinguished and you're going to cease to shine at all down here. And not only are you going to cease to exist down here, and even above, once you're reabsorbed in your source, the identity of the light is going to dissolve in its source, just like the rays dissolve in the source of the sun. Nevertheless, this is what the flame is naturally inclined to do. This is its nature. It's a given. Scientists, what do scientists do? They could tell you what is going on, and they could tell you what's going on by observing something, and they could tell you what they think might be. But scientists never ask why. They don't say, why is the flame flickering upwards? This is what the flame does. This is the nature of the flame. This is a given. So no one's asking, why does the flame do this? Because this is its nature. As soon as you say this is its nature, there's no question of why. This is how it is. This is a given. This is a fact. And this is what the candle wants. Kach nishmas ha'adam. In the same way, the same thing applies to the soul of a Jew. V'chein bechinas ruach v'nefesh. And even the lower soul powers of ruach and nefesh, because we said that the soul has 5 parts. Nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, yechida. So when we're saying that we're talking about the neshama, then the neshama part, there's other parts that are lower, but this applies to the lower parts of the neshama as well. The chachma of the lower parts of the neshama, of every part of the neshama. Chavtza v'cheshka b'tiva liparid v'latis minaguf. It naturally yearns and desires to be separated from the body and to leave it.
Are you saying that Yidden are like inherently suicidal? It sounds like almost like we don't want to live.
The deepest part of our neshama has a death wish. It wishes it wishes to be connected to Hashem, no matter what. All it wants is to be connected to Hashem, even if it means that it's not going to exist anymore. And that's the chachma of our neshama. It's only one part of our neshama. Our neshama after chachma, we have bina and das and everything else. So there is, our neshama there's a big part of our neshama that does have an identity, that does feel good about having a relationship with Hashem. And that's fine. Just like we said in a marriage, you have to have the foundation has to be the commitment and the respect. And then you also have to have some kind of gain. So yes, when we serve Hashem and we have a meaningful life and there's tremendous benefits to serving Hashem, absolutely. So the neshama does have an identity. But the deepest part of the neshama, the chachma of the neshama, that part is completely and totally selfless, and that is the chachma shebenefesh, which is the place of and the origin of this hidden love. And now we're understanding why a Jew would give up their life for Hashem. How does it happen? How does it happen? Because Bina is where logic starts. So logic, the question is, who's in control of the logic right now? Is it my godly soul? And if it's my godly soul, then I'm here learning Tanya. And just something incredible about this fire that we're talking about, this place of selflessness. How do you know? How do you know if we're dealing with the godly soul or the animal soul? One of the ways to know is that the godly soul, what it wants is unity with Hashem. And the incredible thing is that, and the other side of holiness, all it wants is separateness. So the fact that we're all coming together to learn together, we're united to learn together, that is a tremendous thing. We could all be in our houses, open up YouTube or whatever, and listen to a class. And that's great. But the fact that we come together, there's incredible power here because there's unity over here. We're all learning together. And our neshamas, each neshama, each fire thrives on uniting with everyone else, with other fires. My animal soul only cares about me. It doesn't care about anyone else. But my godly soul wants to unite with all the other godly souls. And that's one of the incredible benefits of learning together or learning with a chavrusa, is now you have, if you're learning with one other, even if you're learning with one other person, you have two godly souls united, but each animal soul is separate. So whenever there's unity, you're talking that there's holiness. And when there's separateness, it's always the other side of holiness. That's just in general a way to measure, who's in charge currently. But anyway, when the godly soul is in charge and is sitting in the driver's seat and is in control, then we're learning, we're doing good stuff. But sometimes the bina, the logic, is hijacked by the animal soul. And it looks like this. Okay? It's 11:30 at night, everyone is sleeping, and you're very tired, and you go on your phone and you find some YouTube whatever, and before you know it, it's an hour later, and whatever you watched didn't have anything to do with holiness. And now I say to myself, logically, it's okay. I didn't hurt anybody. No one knows what I watched. I needed to relax. I needed to wind down. Wasn't anything bad. And I convinced myself that there was absolutely nothing wrong with just like wasting an hour of my time just getting other ideas in my head that are completely not from a Jewish source, whatever it is. And I wasn't separated from Hashem that hour because I didn't do anything. I was just sitting there just because I was too tired to go to bed. And the logic convinces you that you're fine. You're totally fine. What happens is there's in a state of emergency when a person is put to the ultimate test and says either bow down to the cross or die. Logic cannot convince you that if you bow down to the cross, even for a second, that you're not separating yourself from Hashem. Logic is always rationalizes everything. Rational lies. It's telling you you're fine. You're human, you're fine. You could have a little bit of time to just do it at, whatever you want to do. You dive and you learn, and now there's time for me for whatever I want to do. When logic fails because you're put to the test, either the cross or die, logic is gone. Logic can't do anything. Logic can't convince you logically that there's nothing wrong with bowing down to the cross. And then the only thing that can show up is Chachma, which is above logic. That flame that wants to return to its source. And then the person says, I'm ready to give up my life for Hashem. Because now logic is not available.
You could say that if I bow down, then I'll be able to serve God longer, otherwise I'm going to die now. There could be logic.
Cases of people doing that and saying.
No, it's just.
Okay, so we said last time, we said two things. We said a few things since that. We said, just like it is possible for a parent to abuse a child. Is that natural? No. It is possible for a person not to give up their life for Hashem. But is that natural for a Jew? No. And if the person and it's very important to know that every person does have the potential to give up their life for Hashem. Will every single Jew use their potential? Maybe not. But we do have the potential. We do have the potential. Every single Jew, no matter what, has the potential to give up their life for Hashem when their bina fails, and the only thing that's available is the chachma. And when chachma shows up, it affects every single part of the person, including their actions. And that's why they will not be able to, with their action, to bow down to the cross, even if they're thinking in their mind, I don't really mean it. But everyone else is watching. They don't see what's going on in my brain. Chachma, if the Chachma wakes up, the person will not be able to bow down to the cross because the Chachma is going to affect your action. Maybe the Chachma is still in prison. The Chachma is exiled. Maybe the Chachma wasn't able to manifest itself. And that's why the person didn't give up their life. But the majority of Yidden did give up their life. And every single Yid has the potential to give up their life. And how does it happen? It's because the Bina fails. It can't convince you that at the moment of bowing down to the cross, what happens later, it happens later. But the Chachma is so strong, the yearning is so real that it cannot be separate from Hashem even for a second. So sure, it'll be 1 second, just bow down and then stand up and then serve Hashem for another 100 years. But the Chachma won't allow it. When the Chachma is revealed, the person cannot be separated from Hashem even for 1 second. So the Chachma is the part of this, it's the selflessness, there's nothing for me to gain over here. There's no gain. It's just a desire to be one with Hashem, and I can't separate myself from Hashem, and therefore I can't bow down to the cross. There's a story of Rabbi Yitzchak of Berditchev. Rabbi Yitzchak of Berditchev was a Yid, that a big tzaddik. He loved doing mitzvahs to the extent that one year was Sukkot, and the first opportunity to make the bracha on the wall of an esrog, he runs to the break front where the esrog is. He was so excited that he put his hand through the glass to get the esrog. He makes the bracha, and only after does he realize that his hand is bleeding. He was so excited to do the mitzvah. Problem is, 1 year there were no esrogim to be found. Esrog is the citron fruit. There was no esrogim to be found in Berditchev. But there was a very wealthy man who was traveling through, and he did have an esrog. So he said, please, can you stay for Sukkot? We'll give you a lot of money, and we'll all use your esrog. He said, I'm very wealthy. I don't need your money. I'm on my way home to my family. Not happening. So Rabbi Yitzchak said to him, I will give you half of my olam haba, half of my world to come, if you stay for Sukkot. So he said, okay, that I can't refuse. So he says, fine, I'll stay for Sukkot. Then comes the first night of Sukkot, when it's a mitzvah from the Torah to eat at least a kazayas, to eat at least some food in the sukkah. And he's wondering why no one's inviting him. So he has no choice. So he goes, he knocks on the door of the first person next to the shul. Can I come eat in your sukkah? They're sorry, we have no room. Every house, every person who knocks on the door, sorry, we can't have you. He said, what's going on? What's going on? So the next house knocks on the door, sorry, we can't have you. He says, what's going on here? Why can't anyone let me come into their sukkah to eat? What's going on? He says, I'll tell you the truth. We got a message from the Rav Levi's Kabbalah, from his attendant, and he said, no one is allowed to allow you to eat in their sukkah. So he says, okay, if that's the case, I'm going to Rav Levi's Kabbalah's house to complain. What is this? You cheated me, you made me stay here, and now no one lets me eat in the sukkah. So Rav Levi's Kabbalah said, you know what, you could eat in my sukkah, just give me back my Elam Haba. If you give me back my world to come, if the deal is off, then you could eat in my sukkah. What would you do if you were that guy? Right now, he has the world to come in his back pocket. If I do the mitzvah, right, then I get brownie points, right? I did a mitzvah. I get a reward. But he doesn't need the reward anymore because he has it already. What's greater? The reward of one mitzvah? He already was promised half of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev's Olam Haba, his world to come. He's set for life. He doesn't need the reward of one more mitzvah. What should he do? What would you do if you were in that case? If you were in that
The
situation?
Shama's gonna wanna do another.
Yeah.
What is it?
I think the Shama's gonna want to do one more.
Yeah, is it before learning times or after? Because then we know what to do, you know?
So now his choice is either something that's going to benefit me. I am going to benefit from the fact that I have Olam Haba, or forget about me. There is no me. All I care about is another opportunity to do a mitzvah. A mitzvah is a unity and a connection with God. And he turns to the B'dishim and says, okay, take back your Olam Haba. I want the opportunity to have to connect with Hashem, to do the mitzvah. The B'dishim says, I was just testing you. He says, till now, I gave you my Olam Haba on a silver platter. Now you earned it. But the point is that there's what I'm gonna gain. Okay, that's logic. That's from a place of bina. But there's a higher place than that, which is illogical. It's the nature of fire, of a flame, to want to go back to its source. Could I explain it? Is it rational? Is it logical? No, because we're talking above logic. The flame wants to go back to its source, and Hashem wants to go back to its source, and it doesn't care. It doesn't care about anything. It doesn't care about, okay, nothing's up for discussion. At this moment, I have to be connected to Hashem. What's going to happen after, what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen next year is irrelevant. At this moment, I cannot be separated from Hashem. End of story.
I didn't reveal that part of all.
The $1,000,000 question is, how on a daily basis, not in the case of an emergency. In the case of an emergency, when logic fails, Chachma shows up, and it's a no-brainer. It automatically shows up. But what happens in the day when logic is doing just fine?
Where the rational minds comes in.
Right? So we're not going to answer in this class, but that's where we're getting to. We're building to figure out how we could benefit from this Chachma Shebenefesh on a daily basis, not in the case of an emergency. But first, we have to understand the aspiration, what this hidden love, what it is striving for, what its desire is, what its definition is, what does it want. We have to understand that the Chachma Shebenefesh, the core, which is the source of this hidden love, that the core of it is that all it wants to do is to be connected to Hashem, no questions asked. Okay. Hagam shetia ayin v'efes, even though the soul, even though even though the chachma shebenefesh, it's gonna become null and void. With this battle shama mitzias legamre, and the soul is gonna be complete. It's gonna completely lose its identity. V'lo yishar mimena mu'uma mimehus v'atzmus harishain, and nothing is gonna remain of its original character and substance. Afal pikein, nevertheless, ritzayna v'cheftza, its natural will and desire. Okay. Nevertheless, this is its natural will and desire. The description of this tendency of the flame and the soul as a nature is non-literal. Referring to anything which is not the product of reasoning and logic. So basically, we're saying that when I say the nature of the soul, the nature of the flame, when I say nature, nature means it's above logic. This is just a given. This is just the way it is. V'gam kan. Here too, when we're talking about the neshama, it implies that the soul's will and desire is not the product of reasoning and logic. A graspable and intelligible rationale. Rather, it transcends logic and any graspable or intelligible rationale. So just like we said, when I say a flame has a nature, and as soon as I use the word nature, it's above logic. The same thing is with the soul. The fact that the soul just wants to cleave to its source, that is something that's above logic. It can't be explained. Vihi bechinas chachma shebenefesh. As we learned in chapter 18, the root of the soul's supra-rational intuition and faith is a component. The root is its component of chachma. Sheba Ein Sof Baruch Hu, that in the Chachma shines Hashem's infinite light. Okay, so in Chachma, that's where Hashem's infinite light rests. And where you have Hashem's infinite light, it's like the sun. It's like the source. It's like the source of fire. Over there is no identity. There is no me. When you're how could there be a me and identity in the face of God's infinite light? You disappear. You're gone. You're absorbed in the source. Vizel kla b'chol sitra d'kedusha. And the following is a fundamental principle with all the forces of holiness. We have to understand the fundamental principle is the forces of holiness are exclusively derived from Chachma. What we're saying is there isn't multiple ways of connecting to Hashem. There's this way, there's that way. There's only one way. There's only one avenue. Of course, there's many different things that we could do. But we have to understand that there's only one path to reach holiness, and that is through Chachma. There is no other options. Anything that has to do with holiness ultimately is traced to Chachma, and Chachma over there, that's where God's infinite light is, and that's it. There's nothing else to look for.
And people try other avenues.
Chachma is the window for God's infinite light to shine. That's it. There's no other way to have. There's no other access point or back door.
What I'm trying to say is that people try to feel spiritual. Unfortunately, by doing the wrong things, they go against Hashem's will because they say it makes them feel quote unquote spiritual. But they're not accessing it at all.
There are many ways to access Chachma. It's not one path, right? Seven Paramotah. There's many ways to God. It's not just, it's all through Chachma. So I guess there are many variations of Chachma.
It's all it's everything that we do, everything that we do, it's either kedusha, it's either holiness or the opposite of holiness. Holiness means selflessness. Unholiness is separateness. Just like you have good and evil. What's the opposite of holy? The opposite of holy is being separate. So there's many different mitzvahs that we could do, but the common denominator is this this point of chachma, which is ultimately, as a Jew, ultimately the deepest core of us. Everything that we're doing is coming from a place that we love Hashem in such a way that we're ready to give up our life for Hashem. There's a selfless love for Hashem. And my identity is not what matters. And that's the crux and the core of a Jew. And our life and our life comes from Chachma. Everything comes from Chachma. Chachma is how Hashem, in his infinity, how we can access him and how he can have a relationship with us. It all comes through the window of Chachma. And then it trickles down into everything else. But that's the channel. That's the way it comes. Nikra Kodesh Ha'elyon. As we find that Chachma itself is actually referred to as supernal holiness. And this is from the Zayar, since it is the root of everything holy. Chachma is the root of everything that's holy. And as you have explained, this is because Chachma's own identity is voided by the blessed infinite light present within it. That once Hashem's infinite light is shining, even Chachma doesn't have an identity. Nothing has an identity before the light of Hashem. The Eina Davar Bifnei Atzma, so that it doesn't feel itself to be an independent thing from Hashem. Kniskal is explained above. So even Chachma, so Chachma itself doesn't feel, nothing in the level of Chachma feels its own identity. And how do we know this? And how do we see this? Therefore, Chachma is called Kayachma. Chachma. Take the first two letters of Chachma and you switch them around, you have Kayach. Kayach ma. It's a power, but ma, what is it? Chachma is the opposite of ego. A person who has ego is full of himself, he's sure of himself, he's fine. Chachma is, I'm saying there's a power, but ma, what is it? I'm questioning, I'm inquisitive, I'm open to something new. It's not, I'm full. Chachma is where I say, it's not about me. I'm here to learn, I'm open to get something, I'm not full of myself. And so Chachma is so in Chachma, there is no ego, there is no identity, there is no me. It's complete openness to God's infinite light. And in Chachma, there is no such thing as anything other than God's infinity. And that's our source. That's the source of this love. This Chachma is the exact opposite of Klipa, which is a peel or a shell, V'sitra Achra on the other side of holiness. Okay, this is a little bit harsh, and it says that which produce the souls of the nations of the world who are self-serving. Okay, no one wants to hear this. But it's not me. But basically, what it's saying is that everyone else, all the other nations of the world, what is the source of their soul? The source of their soul is Kalipa and Sitra Achra. It is the other side of holiness, and therefore they don't have the ability to truly be selfless like a Jew can be. Because there,
Saying that the benign when they do everything that Hashem wants,
Something in it for them.
right?
There's something in it for them. It's not purely to serve God. They want
there's always a
reward.
gain or a benefit. And there's a gain and benefit for a lot of things that we do too. But we have the ability, well, the difference between the uniqueness of a Jew is that a Jew is able to sacrifice their life for Hashem, to destroy themselves. Like Avraham Avinu, he was willing to destroy himself and everything that he built by sacrificing his son. There will be zero gain, nothing whatsoever. And a Jew is able to self-sacrifice, to give up themselves, to destroy themselves for Hashem, because in the face of God's infinite light, they don't have an identity, and they don't care. They don't care about a Gan Eden. They don't care about Olam Haba. They don't care about the world to come. They don't care about any gain. No, when it comes to bow down to the cross or die, there's no calculations. If I die, then who knows what kind of Olam Haba I'm going to get because I sacrificed myself. Nothing. It's above logic. And that is something, that is something that's unique to a Jew. It's whatever. I'm just translating I'm just translating. This is what it says here. The omrin have. The tendency of klipa is to say, give me, meaning what benefit can I get over here? V'haliteni. This is what Esav said to Yaakov. He said, feed me. He basically said, pour the soup down my throat. Never wanting to give back in return.
Esav was a son of a Jew.
The Jews are only after Yaakov, no?
Yeah.
The Bnei Yisrael.
Jewish, yeah.
His mother was a Jew.
No, what does Jew mean? What did Jew mean then? Nothing. It was people that served God, but they didn't,
It
no?
says Isaac was going to do Shiva. Confused.
Well, also, Yaakov had children by non-Jewish wives, so there's another question about that, which we talked at your house about. Not, yeah.
No, not Yaakov. Oh, okay. Yaakov is
Not all
considered.
the tribes are from.
But it says that he had complete.
Yeah. Yaakov's all of his children
Yeah.
were all
That's where
tzaddikim.
that's right, but not all of the tribes come from one way.
Yeah, but that's where the Jewish nation
Yeah.
started.
So-
children
so-
of Yaakov
so-
were-
Right.
But not all the mothers.
Maybe their mothers weren't, but they all were,
Except
that's
for
where
now
the
we
Jewish
go by your
nation is.
Jewish by being who your mother is.
Right.
Is that
So
only since Har Sinai?
yes, only since the
Well,
giving
that's
of the
since
Torah. Only since giving the Torah are you automatically Jewish if your mother is Jewish. Before it was different.
So you could have gotten a Yiddish and a Shema, even if your mother was not Jewish at that time.
Apparently.
But since Har Sinai, that doesn't hold. Only if your mother is Jewish.
Since Har Sinai, you're only Jewish if your mother is Jewish. There was something about Abraham's family, and that's why when he wanted a wife for Yitzchak, he specifically sent Eliezer. He said, "Get a wife for my family," because he wanted those traits. He wanted that DNA. He wanted, So there is something, there is something to say about, about our forefathers and about their children. How to define, exactly. As a matter of fact, they say that Esav, his core, his source is even higher than Yaakov. And therefore, and the same is with Yishmael. What happened? God comes to Avram and says, I'm going to give you a son, Yitzchak, and he's going to continue your legacy. Avram said, I don't need Yitzchak. If only Lu Yishmael Yichya lefanecha. Halavai Yishmael. If only Yishmael would walk before you. Avram was happy that Yishmael continued the legacy. And God said, no, the Jewish people has to come from Yitzchak. Yitzchak is the one that had a circumcision at 8 days old, which is above logic. Yishmael had a circumcision at 13. God said the Jewish people have to come from someone, has to be based, the foundation has to be in a relationship that's above logic. It has to come from Yitzchak, not from Yishmael. Why there had to be a Yishmael, why there had to be a Esav, I don't know. also there is a concept that everything in holiness has to be counterbalanced with something with the opposite. But okay, so let's go back to what we do know. What we do know is that a Jew is unique in the fact that they have this chachma shebenefesh, which they inherited from the forefathers. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are our forefathers. We're not discuss. Doesn't discuss. They're our forefathers. If Avram had a child Yishmael and Yitzchak had a child Esav, that why that was. We're not discussing that at the moment. But what we're saying is that our forefathers gave us the ability. They gave us they gave us as an inheritance a soul that has this chachma shebenefesh, that has the ability to give up our life for Hashem when there is absolutely no gain whatsoever. And that's only something that's unique to a Jew. And this self-serving mentality is caused by the feeling of ego and separateness from God, as stated above, which is the opposite of Chachma's character. It's not their fault. It's just where the source of their soul comes from. If your soul comes from Chachma, and what's Chachma? Chachma is the ability to have no gain and to be completely one with the source. That's where we come from. That's the core of our soul, and that's why we're able to give up our life for Hashem. But the people that didn't have that by no fault of their own, that they were born and the way they were born, and they have their mission is that the source of their soul is coming from Klipa. The definition of Klipa is separateness from Hashem. I have my own identity. Hashem, I could serve you, I could daven, but now I need an hour for myself to just chill, to just leave me alone.
But don't you find that in Jewish people as well? Like, it's not that you can't just separate everybody. It's not clean cut. It's not clear cut, because there's plenty of Jews who wouldn't die for Hashem, and there's plenty of non-Jews who would die for God. Christians who believe in the same one God. I'm not talking, like the whole blow yourself up thing, because it'll get you a place in heaven. I'm talking about, Christians. So that's what doesn't make sense to me, because I see both in both sides. And then my other question is too, like, does this come from our sages, or does this come from the Torah somewhere? Like, where does this come from?
Everything here is sourced in Torah, every single thing. You could see in this Tanya.
It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So
We have ego.
So the thing is, we may not accept.
Because we're not in our perfect self.
Yeah.
Right, but
But we have
when you
the
describe
ability
it,
to be totally
but don't you
selfless.
think that everybody has that ability?
It says that they don't.
I
Says
know
that
it
they
says
don't.
that, but I feel like I see, not that, I see.
So you don't see people's insides of why they're doing it, if there's a
Right.
self-serving motive or not. We
Right,
don't
but you
know.
also don't know if they don't have it. That's the other thing.
Right, but
The Torah knows,
Yeah.
meaning someone could be doing a lot of good things, but what is their real inner motive? No one has access to that.
Right, well, the same thing with us. How do we know?
I think also it's
we
like
don't
a
always do
punishment,
things
like
with
we all
great
speak different
intent.
languages, so how
You know?
can we?
Well,
tell?
that's where the question is, to
ask
ask yourself, is this connecting me to Hashem?
Well, that's
Or
why I
this
asked too, like, I love helping people. And I've talked about this in another class, and it's like, it makes me feel good. I can't not feel good. So does that mean I'm doing it for myself, or am I doing it selflessly?
Well, are you
Because
doing
it
it to
still
help
makes
people on
me-
the byproduct does you feel good, or are you only helping you because it makes you feel good?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's
it's-
excellent. That's
No, that's
excellent.
what I'm saying. Like, I'm saying I love to help people. And if somebody asks me, even if it takes me out of like what I'm supposed to be doing for myself or my house, even if, it's not something that's pleasant or, makes me do something, it makes me not always happy, but I mean, I feel good that I would help that person. So what does that mean?
So
Does
what's
that
the
mean, like,
motive? What was the reason why you
They
said,
needed
I'm gonna
help
push
and I-
everything away to help them? Is that because you
don't
see
know.
someone in need and you wanna help them, or is
Yeah.
that because I wanna feel good, I need that?
No,
good
because
feeling
I
inside?
wasn't looking for it. It was looking for me.
So then that's.
And
true
then I
goodness.
said, right, but yet it makes me feel good.
So that's okay.
But let me ask you a question.
But if
Yeah.
somebody else on the outside would say, oh, she just, it makes her feel good, so she likes to do it.
See,
You know
that's
what
when
I
no
mean?
one could judge anyone else, but no one knows anyone's
Well, that's
motive.
what yeah.
But let's say someone asks you to do
There could be a
something.
good byproduct, a good feel
Yeah.
of doing something good. You don't have to feel miserable.
Right.
But the reason you're doing it is not to feel good. The reason you're doing it is to help someone. And
But I'm
so-
sure there are examples of Jewish people who are doing things, and I'm sure there's
of course,
times
because
when-
everyone is not in their ultimate form.
Right. Right. We always have to we have to judge Judaism not by that, not by how, it's not by how people are actually behaving, but it's about what the truth is. You know, you can't judge Judaism by Jewish people. You have to judge Judaism by, Judaism is Judaism. Whether we're maximizing who we are and what we could be is another story. But the question that you should ask yourself is, thank you so much for coming. The question that we're asking ourselves is, let's say there was no feel good. Would I do it anyway? And the answer is that you would do it anyway, which means that it's coming from a holy the holy place,
I still do.
right? Because not always is helping. Sometimes okay, I'll help someone, and it makes me feel good, and that feel good feeling overrides the dirty dishes in the sink. That's one thing. But sometimes helping someone is not going to feel good. Take Label Lazarov, for example. He went he saw a police officer in Bondi in Australia. What happened was he saw a police officer that was shot, and he went in the line of fire, and he took off his own shirt off his back, and he made a tourniquet for him, and he got shot in the abdomen, in the thigh, and he's already had 8 surgeries already. I mean, there's a lot more of hospitalization and everything. That there is no pleasure in all that suffering. And yet I heard him on a video on status saying, next, I says, I don't know what's going to be, if I'm going to, how I'm going to be here in the hospital, I'm going to go back to Texas and continue continue his rehab in Texas. He says, but no matter what, next year, Hanukkah, I'm going to be here. So what I'm saying is that where does it come from? Where does it come from? And of course, non-Jews could also run into the line of danger and help people and everything like that. But what Tanya is saying, and if it doesn't make sense to us, then we need to work on ourselves. But what Tanya is saying is that although Jews and non-Jews may look alike physically, and we both have 2 eyes and a nose and a mouth, but there's something intrinsically different between a Jew and a non-Jew, and that is the ability to have to have that selflessness with absolutely nothing to gain, with absolutely nothing. That 14-year-old girl, she was safe under a bench, whatever it is, and she got up to save 2 kids, and she said, I don't care. I don't care if I die. I'm going to try to save these kids. Where does that come from? Where does that come from? The selflessness with nothing to gain, no heroes, no medals, no calculations, no logic. Where does that come from? It comes from the Chachma Shebenefesh. It comes from the Jewish soul that has this Chachma part, which is compared to a flame, that wants to go back to its source. And we're so lucky. Asher Matem Chalkeinu, how lucky we are that we are born Jewish, and that we have this inheritance from our forefathers. But other people they have their mission, and they could be wonderful people. And it's true, you could find a person who's not Jewish, who, when we look at him, he looks way more spiritual or doing God's work more than someone else, 100%. But it doesn't take away from the nature of a Jewish soul that is sourced in Chachma versus someone who's not born Jewish, who's no fault of their own, but their nefesh, their soul is the root of their soul is from Klipa, and Klipa, the definition of Klipa is separateness and ego. So they can't be more than their source. It's just not possible. Okay, well, basically, I'm just going to finish another line, and that's it. Okay, if you thought that was harsh, so we're getting even harsher. Therefore, the forces of Klipa are referred to as dead. Because Chachma gives life. And it's all based. Every single thing here has a source. Uksiv yamusu v'lai b'chachma, and the verse states they die without chachma. Okay, this is where we're going to stop in the Hebrew. Okay, life is a result of interconnectedness. You are only alive because your organs and limbs work together in a wondrous unity. If your arm, for example, would lose its blood supply and nervous connections to the rest of the body, it would die. In a broader sense, something is only alive if it is connected with God. Kalipa and all that it embodies is an energy of ego, fragmentation, and disconnectedness. Therefore, it is compared to death. And obviously, we're talking about spiritual life and we're talking about spiritual death. But just to conclude, in Judaism, one of the 13 principles of faith is that we have to believe in the concept of Tchias HaMesim, the resurrection of the dead. And why is it one of our 13 core beliefs? And that is because when Mashiach comes, Chachma, that the Chachma, the God's infinite light and the Chachma, all that's going to be revealed. And that is all, that is the source of life. And therefore, when we're connected to Chachma, when we're connected to in that place, there is no death, because death is anything that's separate from God. And once evil will be removed from the earth, there will be no death. There will only be connectedness, and therefore we're going to live forever. So long as we're in a state of holiness, of kedusha, of chachma, where every single thing is completely nullified before God, and there is no me and there is no ego, then we live forever. And as soon as we introduce separateness and identity and ego, that is the source and the beginning and the downfall and the source of death. And we see this even with Adam and Chava, with Adam and Eve. When they were in the Garden of Eden, they didn't even have to wear clothes, because every single part of their body was all for the sake of God. There was no pleasure and physical desire and anything like that. So everything was holy. Everything was completely one with God and subservient and submissive to God, and there was no other agenda. The second sin, separateness, ego, was introduced to the world. They didn't have it within them, but it was in the snake. The second there was a sin, all of a sudden, okay, now you need clothes. Now there's pleasure. So now there's identity. So now we have to protect ourselves. So basically what we're saying is that holiness, the opposite of holiness is separateness from Hashem. And as long as we're holy, we're alive and connected. And when we're separate and ego and all that, and having our own identity and our own agenda and our own me, that is the antithesis of holiness. And all this was in order for us to understand the core of our soul, which is Chachma Shebenefesh, which is the ability which is the source which is the ultimate source of holiness, which is the place where there is 100% connection and zero ego and only oneness and unity and zero identity. And therefore, when there's no identity, then of course a person will give up their life for Hashem. It's a no-brainer. Pun intended. Yeah, because it's above logic. Okay, we'll stop here for today. Thank you so much.